reminder of the power of balancing pride and humility as we go about our daily lives. This is episode number 79. I am your host, Jared Morris, with a little extra pep in my step this morning as I have my studio audience of one back with me. Welcome back, my love. It's nice having you home. So tell me if you can relate with this. You probably can. We get inundated with emails in our inbox, and I used to be someone who subscribed to a lot of email newsletters, and then I realized that I couldn't keep up with any of them, and so I went the complete other way and got them all out of my inbox and tried to go just with RSS. And that didn't really work for me, and so I've slowly been going back to email. Once I got rid of all of them, now I could slowly but surely put back in the ones that I really, really like reading. One of those is Seth Godin's blog, which I now get via email right in my inbox every day because I realized that I had stopped reading Seth's work as much. And obviously for anybody in marketing, Seth is one of the most influential, important, empathetic voices that exists. And so just really over the past couple weeks after a hiatus that's almost more embarrassing than I care to admit, I've gotten back into reading Seth's blogs regularly. And wouldn't you know it, within the first couple of days, there's one that I feel like if I had missed, now I know that if I had missed it, I would really have regretted it. And of course, I never would have known that it had come anyway. But it is a recent blog post that Seth did called Entitlement versus Worthiness. And it is essentially his take on primility without, of course, using that term, without addressing it directly. Wouldn't that be a monumental moment for the site for the primility mindset? Someday, maybe. The question is, would we feel worthy of such a mention? And that's part of what Seth talks about in this blog post, where he's talking about entitlement versus worthiness, because essentially what he's doing is he is talking about pride. And in episode 77, primility.com/show/077, we talk about the difference between the good kind of pride and the bad kind of pride, right? And how pride, when it goes into its excess, when we can't rein it in with something, typically humility, it leads to arrogance, it leads to conceit, it leads to vanity. We'll add another word to that list, which is entitlement. And Seth actually gives a really good example to illustrate entitlement. He says, Halloween is hardly what it could be. Any other day of the year, hand a kid a chocolate bar and he'll be thrilled. Do it on Halloween and it's worth almost nothing. When you receive something you feel entitled to, something expected that you believe you've earned, it's not worth much. And when you don't receive it, you're furious. Now, the balance to that, of course, is worthiness, which Seth describes as an essential part of receiving anything. And by the way, if you want to read this blog post, which I highly recommend, go to primility.com/show/079, and the link will be there in the show notes. But as he says, when you feel unworthy, any kind of response, positive feedback, or reward feels like a trick, a scam, the luck of the draw. It's hardly worth anything because you decided in advance before you got the feedback that you weren't worthy. Now listen to this line right here. It's possible to feel worthy without feeling entitled. Humility and worthiness have nothing at all to do with defending our territory. We don't have to feel like a fraud to also be gracious, open, or humble. What is he saying right there? He's essentially saying that we have to balance, we have to feel worthy enough, but we can't let that go into feeling entitled, because obviously the first step towards feeling entitled is feeling worthy. And we have to have our humility, have our graciousness to help us balance that out. And I think he sums it up really well at the end when he says, the universe, it turns out, owes each of us very little indeed. Hard work and the dangerous commitment to doing something that matters doesn't get us a guaranteed wheelbarrow of prizes. But what it does do is help us understand our worth. That worth, over time, can become an obligation, the chance to do our best work and to contribute to communities we care about. When the work is worth it, make more of it because you can and because you're generous enough to share it. I'm not worthy isn't a useful way to respond to success, and neither is that's it. It might be better if we were just a bit better at saying thank you. And I love how he ended that, incorporating this idea of gratitude as essential to cultivating this mindset, where we have this balance between pride and humility, where we feel worthy, but not entitled, or we feel worthy to step up and share ourselves and share our work because we feel that it can make a difference, but not entitled to feel like we expect something specific in return for it. And then being grateful for the responses that we get, for the reactions that we get. That gratitude is such an important part of maintaining this balance of pride and humility, maintaining the right level of worthiness that doesn't go into entitlement over the long term. So really, really enjoyed this article. Obviously, Seth's thoughts are extremely influential in the space that I work in, but even for someone who doesn't work in a marketing realm, you can still learn a lot from reading Seth's blogs, from reading his books, and so I highly recommend that you go over and check this post out. Well, that wraps up this episode of Primility Primer, another episode of Primility in the Wild, where we go out and find blog posts and other pieces of content that are essentially talking about primility without using the actual term, because as we've said many times, this is not some new idea that we're talking about here on Primility. It's a centuries-old idea, and we're just trying to carry the torch, pass it on, spread the word, and hopefully bring you original ideas about it, but then also find as many old, classic, new ideas about it as we can, and make this the ultimate source for talking about the importance of balancing pride and humility. I hope you all have a great weekend. Make sure you go to primility.com/join and get on the email list. You will get our Friday digest later this morning. We send that out on Friday, and you will also get our Monday morning mindset email. It's 250 words or less. It's a positive thought to get your week started off on the right foot. I'll probably be writing that later today, and I hope it hits your inbox on Monday. All right, everybody, stay cognizant of your pride and humility. We'll be back on Monday with episode 80. Wrist bump.